Family, it's your favorite queer radio personality, Anna Deshawn, with our queer news for today. Now, I want to make you a promise. We will continue to bring you the latest in queer news, culture, and politics. So if you're digging our intersectional take on the weekly, consider joining the QCrew. The QCrew is our monthly membership program we started to help grow this podcast. You get weekly emails from me and exclusive interviews with LGBTQ influencers from across the country. With your support, we can bring you more stories celebrating our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and comrade communities. This month, our exclusive interview for the QCrew is with Angie Harvey. Angie is a dear friend of mine and a woman on a mission to help tell our stories. Her documentary, Black Rainbow Love, was her introduction to film, and it's already won 13 awards and is making its international debut. If you want to watch this said exclusive interview, you have to join the QCrew. As always, the link is in the show notes. Family. Did you know the Palm Springs Women's Jazz Festival is coming back, celebrating its 10th anniversary? It's all going down November 11th through the 13th at the Cathedral City Amphitheater. This anniversary celebration is featuring some of the very best women in jazz, including none other than Lettucey herself. So, if you like jazz and enjoy being with lesbians of color from across the country, then you need to start making your plans to attend the Palm Springs Women's Jazz Festival. Visit palmspringswomensjazzfestival.org for all the details. And y'all know we got the link in the show notes, and I plan on being there too, so come on, let's go.
You are now tuned in to higher frequencies. We do this frequently. Turn your radio station to E3 for that decency. Listen to great music and the latest movement. Safe listening for anyone that's tuned in. Who you waking up to? Anna Deshawn, QCrew and friends. It's that real talk. Online radio with the spins. You caught up in traffic, frustrated. Just check in with E3 to shift your vibrations and get elevated. That's queer radio done right. Choose to be yourself. That's the only way to live life, and that's how it's done here. Just know y'all tuned in to the greatest. Ain't no competition. We ain't worried about the other stations. Check.
We will never forget BG. Brittney Griner has been wrongfully detained for 263 days now. U.S. Embassy officials met with BG in Moscow on Thursday. That's right, just this past Thursday. And they said, quote, they saw firsthand her tenacity and perseverance despite her present circumstances, end quote. Now, despite her bravery, she still suffers by not being able to call her wife or family or do what she loves, play basketball. BG continues to be used as a political pawn by world leaders while simultaneously being ignored by mainstream media. You already know, we will continue to speak her name here and call on the U.S. and Russia to orchestrate her safe return home. We are BG. Period. It's that time, family. It's that time to vote. And I know you've heard it all before, and voting is not the sexiest subject, but tomorrow, November the 8th, are the midterm elections. And the reality is the stakes haven't been this high in a really, really long time, and especially for the LGBTQ plus community. Federal and statewide elections are important. There is no doubt about that. But almost, if not more important, are local elections. According to the numbers, 0.2%, okay, of elected officials in the U.S. openly identify as LGBTQ, even though 7.1% of the country identifies as LGBTQ+. So this means we would actually need to elect roughly 36,000 more queer and trans public servants on top of the 1,000 we have in office today to achieve true representation in government. Yeah, that's a lot of people. And the numbers paint a clear picture. The only way we can get more LGBTQ plus representation is by winning seats on city councils, school boards, and county clerkships. Family, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, then you know how important these local elections are. How many times have I reported about the school boards across this country banning LGBTQ books and Black books and evoking power they've never evoked before? The hate is real, locally and federally. We have to vote. We actually need to be in the running for these local positions. we have to have a voice. It is so incredibly important. Now, 1 in 10 voters in tomorrow's midterm will be LGBTQ+, as long as we show up. So family, show up no matter how safe or quiet your district or state may seem. Your vote absolutely matters in the count. Voting is where and how we start. It's how we show we care. If voting didn't matter, they wouldn't be fighting like hell to make it harder and harder for us to get to the polls. Go vote. Then on Wednesday, get back to work. Just get back to the work. Because like I said, voting is the beginning. Next up, November 1st marked the beginning of Trans Awareness Month, bringing much needed attention to our trans fam. The month is less of a celebration and more of a call to action, right? We know how important that is. Many local organizations and community groups feature events and educational opportunities to uplift the voices and experiences of the trans, non-binary, and intersex communities. During Trans Awareness Month, there are some important dates of observance that I want to share with y'all. All right, so November 6th is Trans Parents Day. November 8th, Intersex Day of Remembrance. November 15th through 19th is Transgender Awareness Week. And then November 20th is Transgender Day of Remembrance. And let me share some facts about our trans fam to put all of this into some perspective, okay? Now, in 2022, 155 anti-trans bills were introduced across the United States. Only 27% of American adults personally know someone who is trans. 53% of trans youth have seriously considered suicide in the past year. 53%. And then 85% of victims of anti-trans violence are women. There are 70% higher odds that a transgender person lives in poverty compared to straight cisgender men. Family, we have so much work to do. And if you're not down for doing the work alongside our trans fam, you need to question your own humanity, for real.
Are you lost in your podcast journey? If so, you found the right podcast. My name is DJ Treese, and I'm a podcast producer. In partnership with theCUBE, I'm bringing you the Lost and Found for podcasters. I've worked behind the scenes on some of your favorite podcasts, and I'll be bringing you some great conversations with podcast industry experts to help you find your way through your podcast journey. There's so much information out there, and the industry is rapidly changing. No need to feel lost. You found the right podcast. Subscribe to the Lost and Found for podcasters now. Everywhere that you listen to podcasts, if you prefer your podcast in video, click the link in the description to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube.
And as we honor our trans fam this month, we have to share the saga that is Zaya Wade's identity. You know, when Zaya came out as trans, all the trolls and right-wing conservatives had something negative to say. They couldn't wait to give their unsolicited opinions, okay? And through it all, Dwyane, Gabrielle, and their children stood in front and stood up for Zaya. I promise you that I gained so much respect for him after that. Well, now it's time to take the next step. In August, Dwyane filed to have her name and gender legally changed. This is a big deal. Well, Zaya's mom is on the record for not agreeing with any of this from the very beginning. She has now filed an objection to stop the name and gender change. So Dwyane took to Instagram and had a lot to say. Now, here's a small excerpt. He says, "While none of us are surprised by Siobhan's attempt to fight Zaya's identity and her unwavering attempt to drag my name through the mud, I'm very disappointed that she continuously finds ways of centering herself and her needs without regard to her children." Ooh-wee. And when I say a small excerpt, that's exactly what I mean. He had 3 IG slides, y'all. I was like, next, next. Chile. At the end of the day, this is just all a mess. No child wants to be in the middle of their parents disagreeing. And for this to be so public just makes it even worse. I just feel awful for Zaya. This step in the process is so incredibly important for a trans person because this is when who they are on the inside can begin to align with legal documents like your ID, for example. Something so simple that cis folks take for granted. Now, a decision on the matter won't be made until the hearing, reportedly scheduled for December 12th. I sure hope they can work this out before then because it's just so ugly. Now, I want to close with a local story about the last standing leather bar here in Chicago, Touche. Last Tuesday, Touche was celebrating its 45th anniversary of being in business. That's a big deal. It's a major feat for any business, let alone a gay leather bar. Now, they decided to celebrate by inviting a long-standing ventriloquist, Jerry Holiday, to perform with his puppet. Now, this said puppet is called Sista Girl. Yeah, you heard me, Sista Girl. And just so I'm clear, Jerry is white. So y'all already know this is about to be some BS. His jokes span from loving watermelon, being on welfare, and having multiple kids. Now, when I first heard the story, I was tagged on Facebook and I thought to myself, what in the world is a white man doing with a black puppet and trying to impersonate a black person? Then I went to Twitter and I was able to actually see video clips of the performance, and honestly, y'all, it is worse than you think, because he's just a bad ventriloquist on top of everything else. One of the videos actually showed a person calling him out on it, and do you know what he said? Or maybe what Sista Girl said? Told him he could just get the fuck out. And when he asked the crowd, or maybe Sista Girl, I don't know, child, but when he asked the crowd if he should continue, do you know what happened? People cheered. They cheered. Like, what? The entire The bar and its owner are getting all the heat right now, as they should, because they knew exactly what they were doing. They even told people not to film in advance. That's how bad they knew it was. They've issued an apology, but you knew what this was before he hit the stage. And now there's a town hall happening this Wednesday, 7 p.m. at the Leather Archives and Museum, so the community can voice their opinions and concerns. Now, since I'm not part of the leather community, I wanted to talk with a leader of color in the community to get their take, and I had the opportunity to connect with Mufasa Ali, founder of ONYX. Now, ONYX is an organization formed 27 years ago and operated by men of color who enjoy the leather lifestyle, okay? Now, I want to share some of the conversation we had. And the entire time, fam, this is what I want y'all to know. And this is why I say this all the time, that living at the intersections, being a black queer woman in America, does not leave us with room to breathe. We can show up in black spaces and experience homophobia. We can show up in gay spaces and experience racism. I can show up in all these spaces and experience sexism. There just aren't many words to describe when your humanity is under attack, even in the places that claim to be safe. So take a listen to a little bit of the interview that I had with Mufasa Ali.
We were appalled, as that is our home bar. Each of our chapters has a home bar where they host most of their events. We also host events that called Escape on the south side of Chicago, but our main bar is Touche. And so we were appalled that this was not stopped, even though it may have been booked, that it should have been stopped in the midst of the performance. But there were a whole host of white leather men in the room who were laughing. So it appeared, I think, to the manager that the humor was okay.
It has absolutely hurt a heck of a lot of people. Thank you again, Mufasa, for taking time to talk with me. And family, we will continue to follow this story. ONYX is putting out their statement. A town hall is on Wednesday. We will absolutely have an update in our next episode. Now, y'all always know I close the podcast with a word, but today I want to change it up just a little bit because I want a word from you. Yeah, you. I want to know if you enjoy the new format. The episode's a little longer. You know, we wanted to do more stories, still trying to find a balanced approach. I want to know if you like that we've switched to weekly. Please send me a note at info@e3radio.fm or hit my DMs or drop a comment on TikTok or IG. Just let me know. Send the bat signal, okay? I really, really want to know what you're thinking and get a word from you, okay? And if you really enjoyed this and you're listening until this point, I'd love a good review too. Till next week, family. Peace. If you enjoyed what you hear, rate and review us inside your favorite podcasting app. This podcast is a production of E3 Radio, your #1 queer radio station playing queer music and reporting on queer news in high rotation.